Okay, here we go. Happy Monday, everyone. We have a leg session that we're going to get through today, lower body strength and our abs and core work today. We're going with our classic equipment, which is our bench or chair, as you see here. We also are going to be using our dumbbells and our loop bands. You can grab all that stuff. Keep it close, but we don't need it quite yet, as we are going to start this warm-up with no equipment, and we are going to get on down into our laying on our back position, down on the floor, all the way down. So our legs are straight, arms are extended down beside us. We're going to lift up one leg, grab that knee with opposite hand, exhale, and pull this knee all the way over to the other side. Get it as close to the floor as we can. Inhale, we'll bring that guy back to center, putting him back down. Other one comes up, grabbing with opposite hand, exhaling, bringing it all the way as close to the floor as we can, and then back to center. We'll be going through 5 of these on each side, making 10 total. So we'll get you started on those ones, keeping in mind that we might not be able to touch the floor for the first few reps, or maybe even at all this hour of the day, and that's okay, but we're trying to get as close to the floor as possible. Good morning, come on in. So we're down here, best place to start our session, laying on our back, bringing across that knee, trying to see if we can touch it down to the floor. So these total, 5 on each side, and sit up and get into our 90-90 position that we know so well. So we'll get up here once we're finished those rotations, trying to create 90 degrees at both of our knees. We know the drill with this one. Might be a little bit tight, uncomfortable, in which case you can lean back slightly, but we'll see how we feel. Sitting upright, locking both heels in place. We're going to flip over the legs, over to one side, and then we'll flip over the legs back to where we started. That's 1. We're going to go there and back 10 times total. So again, if you're feeling kind of tight, a little bit pinchy in the hips, we'll lean back and put our hands on the floor. Keeping in mind, the goal eventually is to not do that and to get both of our hips in contact with the floor, which is, again, something that might not be happening, and that's okay. So we'll go there and back 5 times total, getting loosening, stretching feelings happening on the insides and outsides of our hips and legs. And then we are getting up off the floor as we finish up those 90-90s. We'll get ourselves into a narrow stance in our feet, standing right underneath our hips. Soft knees, arms are down by our sides. We're going to hinge the hips back behind us while we extend the arms up above the head. And then we'll bring them back in by our sides, bring our hips forward. That's 1. We're doing 10 of these total. So we'll end up feeling that nice stretch in the back of the legs. And then we'll stand, not worrying too much about our arms, but we are trying to extend them over our head as we push our hips back behind us. So we'll go through 10 of these guys total. Stretching the back of the legs. It feels so nice. There we go. 10 of them. All right, so we'll get through our 10, and then we shall widen up our feet a bit. So at first, my feet were quite narrow. I'm going to step a little bit wider into our squat stance, adding in that angle out to our toes. Arms go up and stay up as we go through some overhead squats, 10 of them to be exact, sitting down to 90 degrees, standing up all the way, and we should never see our hands because they stay lifted above our head. And if you see them, they're probably in front of our head. So we'll get them up and back there. 10 reps total of these overhead squats. Very nice. Very nice. So finishing up those ones, the next one is going to help loosen up our hips. We're going to find ourselves something to hold on to. I'm using this wall over here, and we're swinging the leg forward and backwards. 1. We're doing 10 times forward and backward, making sure we're holding on with at least one hand, 10 of them, and then we'll turn and face that wall and go side to side with that leg for another 10 of these. And again, our count is there and back is 1, 10. We'll do the same thing on the other side, of course, as we do best. Swing out this other leg now, again, loosening up the hip, front, back of the hip on the forward, backward, trying to avoid too much movement in our body, although there might be a little bit happening. And then we'll go side to side, feeling that one on the inner thigh and the outside of the leg as we kick this leg. Side to side. Okay, so 10 and 10. Feeling a little bit looser after that one. Yes. Yes. Okay. So we got one more standing, and then we shall head back down to the floor. Back into our squat stance for this next one. We're going to sit down to a squat and try to touch the floor with both of our hands. Standing, we're going to start to turn to one side, pivoting that opposite foot. So I'm shooting up onto the toe, reaching my arms up. That's one. We'll sit back down, and then I'm going to come up to the other side. That's two. We're doing 10 of these total with a reach. So we'll feel an opening stretch through the front of this hip here. We want to push that hip forward towards the side that we're reaching. And then again, sitting down, trying to get our hands close to the floor. Keeping in mind, though, if you need to, you can just touch the fingertips rather than the entire palm and hand. So we'll go through 10 of these total. Squat and reach with that little pivot in the toe. Let's get those going. And then we are headed back down onto the floor. We got two movements down here that are all about activation. The first one's for our core. The second one is for our glutes and hips. So we're going to lay back down on our back here, extending our arms up so our wrists are sitting on top of our shoulders. Legs come up 90 degrees at the knee, 90 degrees at the heel. We're going to lower opposite arm and opposite leg. You have to think about this a little. Bring it back up to the top. And we'll do 10 of these total, 5 on each side, alternating which side goes down. So right arm, left leg, bring them back up, and then left leg, right arm, bring them back up. The entire time we're pushing that low back into the floor, trying to keep that as tight as possible. And yes, waking up the brain, getting some coordination going, trying to connect those opposite hands and feet. We want to avoid any movement in these two limbs that are not moving, which is again something you might have to slow down, think about a little bit. 10 total. Once you're finished 10, stay here. We're going to take the palm opposite top of the knee and squish them together as hard as we can. Keeping those other two lifted in that same position, we'll lower and lift 10 times now on this side, trying to keep that tight pressure between that hand and that palm, or that palm and that knee, and our lower back and the floor. That should all be very tight. So we'll go through 10 on this side. Breathing as we go through these. And you'll note I'm keeping my leg bent over here. You can straighten it out, but if you're losing contact with the back, then we'll bend that leg so that doesn't happen. So we'll do this on both sides. 10, and then we'll switch. 10 over here, and then maybe one more here. So don't get too excited yet about standing up. You finish up that one, which is again one we should feel all up in our core and abs. The last one we're going to do down here is going to be in a bridging position. So we want to put our feet on the floor. We should be able to feel the heels with a bit of a reach. So not right away, but if you reach down, they are there. Low backs into the floor once again. We're going to drive the hips all the way up to the very top. Once we get here, we're going to lift up one leg, and then we're going to put it back down, trying to stabilize the hips so that they don't shift and tilt. That's the hard part. That's the work that's happening on this one. So we're counting 20 total, 10 on each side of this bridge march, where again, we're trying to keep the hips lifted in that strong and stable position, thinking about stabilizing that hip before we lift up that opposite leg. So we'll go through these ones again. Your first few might be a little wobbly, but as we go through the reps, we'll try to really tighten it up, slow it down so that we're not rushing through this one. 20 total, 10 on each side. You're going to feel the glutes. We're also going to feel some work happening in our abs and core. We'll get through those ones. And then we are standing back up to the top for our very final one. Woo! Which is going to help loosen up all that stuff that we just tightened down there. So we'll get through those bridge walks, taking a sweet time. And then the final one we're going to do in this warm-up is going to be a side lunge variation. It's our double side lunge. So we want to come over to one side of the mat, feet are together. We're going to step out to the side, sending our hips back, shifting back over to the side we started, and then standing up to that opposite end. That's one. We're doing 10 of these total, 5 on each side. We're going to feel a nice opening stretch through our adductors, through the insides of our legs. And we want to make sure that our hips are going back behind us. So we're sticking the butt out, trying to keep our knee back and avoid that knee driving over the toe. 10 of them, 5 on each side. Let's do it. Let's do it. Warming it up. We should be feeling a little looser, active, ready to go. Okay. And I got my list of what we're going to start with. Okay, so we'll finish up those ones. Once you're done, you can grab some water. Woo! We're going to get you started on our first 2 exercises that we have today to start us off. One of them is going to require this here chair. We're going to start, get them over with, I should say, our split squats. Olsen got kicked out here. There we go. So split squats with the rear foot elevated. These ones are going to start us off. In our very first set, we're going to do body weight, okay? And we are eventually going to be adding some resistance in a front-loaded position, so we'll keep those dumbbells close. But we're going to start off body weight to find our position and to get our legs and body ready for this split squat. We're going to be spending 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds descending into each rep, doing 10 of them total. So let's start off with just our body. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, an honest 4 seconds that you have to count. And we'll be doing those 10 times total on each leg. So for those of us who don't have a chair or bench to elevate that back foot, you can always use a stair or stool in your house, or we can have that foot on the floor like so, and go through that same slow, controlled, lowering phase. 10 over here. Body weight, although we will be adding some weight to this on our next round, okay? So we'll go through the other side now, and counting that 4-second descent. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know it can be a little tedious, but we're doing it for a reason. So we'll try to stay consistent and even on all of those reps, on both sides. All righty. So that was our first set, which wasn't really a set that counts. It was just a warm-up set. What we're going to do now, as you finish up that warm-up set, is start our first official working set. Now, like I said, we're going to be holding some resistance or some weight in a front-loaded position up here, which we know makes it more challenging on our shoulders, our upper body, and our core than if we were to hold the weight down here. So we want to find a weight that we can handle to hold up here. If your dumbbells are kind of heavy, you don't really have a lot of options, you can always hold one sideways like this. You can grab, a heavy water bottle, or if you need to, you can stick body weight, as we just did in that first warm-up set there. So I want you to grab onto some form of weight, and we're going to start our first official set of 10 per side with that same 4-second descent. So we'll load up those weights. We don't want to rest them on our shoulders. We want them hovering right in front. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll stand. That's 1. We're doing 10 on this side. So we can start that set. Exhaling out of the bottom. Inhaling, which you might have to do 2 full breath cycles, as we are taking our sweet time on that lowering phase. So if you need to fully inhale, exhale, that's all good. So I'll let you guys get through that first set. Woo! With the weights. This is probably pretty challenging body weight. So we're going to try to push through with this weight in our hands with that 4 seconds on the way down on every one of those 10 reps. So we'll get through those ones. Very nice, very nice. Okay, so we'll do these on both sides. Woo! Okay, so that lowering phase, that eccentric phase, where we're lowering ourselves down, that's when I'm typically talking about going slow, going controlled, because that's the most important part that we should be doing that for us to get the most benefit and the most work on our legs, but also for a safety thing. If we're just falling down to the bottom, we're not getting any control, and that's when we typically will hurt ourselves. So by going slow and controlled on that lowering phase, we're getting more time under tension, and we're also overall going to have a safer set. So as we finish up, we're feeling that one? Yes. That front loaded is no joke. We're going to superset this, pair this with a banded 3-point extension. So if you have a loop band, we're going to bring them out, medium to light strength. We don't need too heavy. And if you don't have a band, you're going to follow along Doing the same thing without a band. So I have the band right around my heels, around my ankles, hip width apart in the feet, soft knees. We're going to hinge the hips back so we feel loaded in the back of our legs and hips. And then I'm going to shift the weight over to one side. This leg is going to go out on this to the side, back on a 45, and then straight back behind that hip. I'm counting every one of these reps. Okay, that's 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can start here counting 15 on each side. So again, side, 45, straight back. Okay, we're feeling some work, a lot happening in that standing leg. And you'll get that if you keep your body still. As soon as we start to shift and move like this, we're missing out on the work that we should be getting by keeping ourselves still and stable. So 15, okay, and that's 15 total. And then we're going to switch. So we'll shift the weight into the other leg and we'll count out 15 now on this side here. Again, same idea, trying to stay stable, even though we're burning and feeling this side a lot more than the first. Okay, 15 total. As we finish up, we're gonna unband. Take about 30 seconds, okay? Don't go right into your next set because, well, you know, those split squats are what we're doing next. We're back to where we started. We are doing 3 more sets. So we have 4 rounds total. And no, unfortunately, that warm-up set that we did not count this round. We're going to complete 3 more, again, with our 30 to 45 second rest period before we repeat, okay? So grab a quick sip of water if you haven't already. And then we are gonna do it again. Back to this first one. Again, front-loaded split squats with a 1, 2, 3, 4 second descent. Let's do it. Okay, so trying to use breath because we know that breath, that is our power. That's going to help us push out of those positions that we don't really feel like we can push out of. So that's going to help you get through your set, especially the second half of those 10. Woo, we're really going to start to feel those. So we'll try to keep it even and use that breath. Okay, so going through our second set. Again, maybe you're using body weight. Let's do it. Okay, so 10 of these, trying to keep our chest up, dumbbells, and 10. Very nice. With that very uncomfortable lowering phase. Yes, yes. All right, so we'll get going into our second set of that 3-point extension. Again, if you're not using a band, which again, the band is preferred if you have it, but some of us simply just don't have them. So in that case, you're gonna follow along, same setup, same knees, same hinge, same tight feeling in the hips, and then we'll go through our 15 count of our extension, trying to keep this leg working the entire time. So we should feel all the work happening in that standing leg. I know this one kind of seems like it should be the moving leg that's working, but it is that standing leg, stabilizing leg that we are getting this work in the hip. Okay, let's do it. Second set. So yes, we have a lot of hip glute focus in this first superset. In fact, on both of these, which is why we take this little bit of rest. Okay, so finish up those extensions, and then we shall think about how good we feel. We have 2 more rounds. Quick sip of water, okay, do a little lap, and then we will get going into set number 3 of 4. So we have 2 more to go. Perfect timing. All right. So again, we'll take some deep breaths, especially if you are really struggling with these ones, which is probably what most of us are feeling. I mean, with the front-loaded position, which is, you know, pretty challenging in its own, and then we have that slow descent, which takes us way longer to complete our set than if we were going more normal 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down tempo. So don't be surprised if, you know, you're really feeling this towards the end of the 10. But if you are feeling like you're not going to make it, you cannot even complete the 10, then maybe we'll take a little bit more rest before we start our next set. Okay, and that's completely fine. We do want to keep that rest under 1 minute, and that is just for efficiency so that we can get through our rounds in a timely manner so we can get all this stuff in today. Okay, and again, if you need to take a few more deep breaths, that's okay. And then we shall get going on set number 3. Okay, so a nice slow, controlled descent. Try and keep your entire foot on the floor. This front foot, we don't want the heel or the toe lifting off the floor. Anytime we're doing really any sort of leg exercise, we want to think about 3 points of contact with our foot. We have our big toe, our little toe, and that heel. Those should always stay fixed on the floor unless, we're doing something specifically to lift up our heels or toes. But that is going to allow you to get the most stable position to do your exercise in, is making sure you have that whole foot down. And sometimes it can be, your body is always looking for ways to cheat, make things easier. It's natural, but we want to make sure that we are keeping that whole foot down, as sometimes we might tend to lift the heel, which is going to make us a little bit more wobbly and not get that same work in the back of the leg. So this is your little reminder, something to think about, is if there's not enough on your last set. Okay, so we'll get through these ones. The extensions. These ones are much harder than they look, especially doing them after that one there. So we'll try to keep everything as tight and as still as possible in your upper body, in that standing leg as we go through this banded extension. Okay, because again, if you have any of this going on, any of this weight being put in that moving leg, you're missing out on so much in this movement. So we'll try to tighten that up. Woo, and you'll feel the difference. Yes, you will. All right. Very nice. And then we have one more set to go to make it 4 total. And we are done. The split squats, which is great news, especially the way we are doing them today. They are definitely not fun for most of us. All right. So we'll grab some water. And then we shall start our last set. We have about 3 minutes to finish up this final round. All right, the split squats, the extensions, and we are going to move on to part 2. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm counting a nice honest 4 seconds on the way down. Every single rep. Even those last few that you're really tired, you just want to get through them. We will try our best to go slow, controlled. Let's get it. There we go. And remember, anytime we do anything crazy like this slow descent, the front loaded position, it is all to get you stronger at these split squats. So in theory, next time we go to do them, when we're not doing this slow tempo, you'll feel stronger and you'll feel more capable in them, in theory. Okay, so we'll get through this last set. Extensions are the last thing on the menu for the first part. Okay, so again, we'll make sure we have that strong setup. It makes a big difference. Soft knees, the hinging of the hips. That's very important, because if we're doing this up here like this, we're not going to feel this. Okay, we should feel the work in our hips before we start our set, which is why we're a little bit excessive maybe with that setup, because it's very important. So knees, the hips back, and then we want to load up the legs. So shifting all of the weight, essentially balancing on the side before we start our set. Okay, arms can stay in front of us, and let's do it. 15 over here, burn in, 15 on the other side, and then we'll take that band off. Don't slingshot it away quite yet, because we will need it for the next part, and maybe even the part after that. All right, so as you finish up, I will give you about 1 minute to get her done on these 2. As we are coming to an end, we can rest, grab some water. We'll wait for everyone to finish up. Keep everything out. We're going to need it all for the next part. Woohoo. Okay. And nice work, my friends. So we'll finish up those extensions. We should be feeling the hips, the work in the hips. That's what we're going for. So shake that out, grab some water, and we are going to start talking about part 2, which starts off with a combo move, which is our single-legged deadlift to reverse lunge. Now, we're going to do this today, taking the balance out of the picture, which is good news. Because for some of us, balancing on lots of these exercises is the hardest part. But we're going to take it out today so we can focus more on the strength and on the muscles themselves. So what I'm going to do is use this here nice white wall. If you don't want to touch your wall, or if you don't have a wall to use, you can always use the back of your chair. You can use the bookshelf. You can use really anything in place of that. And worst case, if you don't have anything to hold on to, well, then you are stuck balancing, and that's okay. But preferably, we want something to be able to sort of graze our hand up and down. I'm going to be using both of my dumbbells, both 8-pounders, stacked on top of each other to make one 16-pounder. So maybe you have actually heavier sets of dumbbells that you can just grab one of, or maybe you want to double up like me, holding them like this. So I'm coming to this wall here, and I'm going to put my hand on the wall, but I'm not holding on to anything with like a white knuckle death grip. I'm just having it here to support my balance, holding the weights on the opposite side of the wall. I'm standing on the same leg on that side of the wall. We want a soft knee. We're going to deadlift, single leg deadlift. We'll come all the way up to the top, and then we'll step back into a lunge, coming all the way up to the top with a slight drive forward in this knee. That's 1. We're doing 8 of these. So again, we have the deadlift, and then we come up, and then we have the lunge, and that's 2. So as we go through this one, and you can see I'm sort of sliding my hand up and down the wall and not just holding on and turning my body. So that's something we want to make sure of. And we're standing up between our reps and between each of these movements. The lunge and the deadlift. We go down, and then we come all the way up, down into that lunge, all the way up. Sometimes we can sort of accidentally add these 2 movements together, but we want to think about 2 separate things going on. The deadlift and then the lunge. So we're doing 8. And again, the deadlift plus the lunge equals 1. 8 of those total. Okay, so deadlift, lunge, 1, 8, and then we'll switch sides. So in my case, I'm just going to turn around and switch onto the opposite side of the wall here, and then we'll go through our second leg. So then we have our deadlift coming up, and then our lunge, and we're doing 8 over here now. So for those of us who don't have dumbbells, you probably presume this. We're going to hold that band looped around our opposite foot. Okay, for the deadlift, and then for the lunge, and same rep count, of course, doing 8 and 8. Woo! So we're getting hamstrings, a little bit of work happening in the back of the legs, back of the hips, sides of the hips. We're feeling it all. With this one, as we finish up, if you have more than one loop band, I want you to grab the second one, grab the first one too, and come on over to your chair. We're going to pair this one with a hip or a knee banded hip thrust, in which I'm going to use both of these bands. So we're going to get a lot of banded knee action going on. I'm going to take my stronger one. And again, if you only have one band, or if you don't follow, or if you don't have them at all, just follow along. But if you only have one, we're going to put this one on the top of the knees. Okay, so stronger one. I know I'm always wearing dark pants. I have dark bands, but it's around the top of the knees here. My second one is going to go on and right below the knees. Maybe you have a better chance seeing that one there. Okay, so once you're double banded up, we can already feel the work that it takes as soon as we open up our knees and our hips. So we're going to lower ourselves down into our hip thrusting position. If you don't have a bench or chair, you can lay down on the floor. And then we're going to walk our feet so that they're a little wider than our hips, almost in our squat stance. Now, the feet are out. We also have to pull the knees out. Now, that position there, we feel a little bit of work already happening in the hips. We're never going to leave this. Okay, we never want the knees to come in. I want you to make sure that you're watching and not allowing that to happen. We're going to drive all the way up to the top, squeeze in our butts. We should feel that contraction. And then we go down, and then we'll exhale and come up, trying to bring our ribs and pelvis together, looking down towards your knees, pushing those knees apart. 15 is the number to beat. So again, the entire time we're driving the knees out, the bands want the knees in. So that's where we're getting this work, is by keeping them apart the entire set. Again, we're lowering down. We want to avoid having the knees fall back. So as soon as that starts to happen, we push right back up to the top. We also want to ensure we get all the way up to that top range. We don't want to just stop down here, okay, because we're missing out on the top. So we'll push all the way up and squeeze the glutes. 15 of them. Woo! All right. So we'll finish up that set. And we're doing it again. Now we have 3 rounds of this. You just did 1. We need 2 more, and we're not taking any rest. So go ahead and peel yourself off that floor. We're going to get going on to our second set right away. Back to our deadlift lunge combination. Okay, so we have our deadlift. We're trying to push the hips back. And then we have that lunge, trying to avoid pushing ourselves off the floor. We want to think about that front leg and hip, pulling ourselves off out of that lunge position. So we'll go through these ones. Second set, again, 8 and 8. Deadlift plus lunge equals 1. And sometimes we need a little reminder. I don't want you to accidentally not do enough or do double the amount. It happens. Okay, so we'll get through set number 2. Deadlift lunging. Okay, so again, whatever you're holding on to, we're just nice and light, just enough so that we don't have to think about balancing, and we get to think a little bit more about what's happening in the back of the hip and the back of the leg. Let's do it. Okay, so we'll go through our second set, trying to make every single rep count. Especially as we approach and start our second set of these hip thrusts, we want to get the most out of this. Okay, we're only doing 3 sets. So we want to ensure that we're feeling all the things here in our second set. Sometimes in our hip thrusts, our butts, our glute muscles, they're very lazy muscles for most of us. Most of us do a lot of sitting, which puts us in this position here, which is a lengthened position for our glutes, okay, which is going to make them kind of get longer, get less active. So if that's you, if you do a lot of sitting, and or if you have a job that makes you sit often, then you might have to take a little bit more time to think about your reps and to think about that contraction that you're getting in your glutes. The bands really help, which is why we have these on, because as soon as we have to push the knees out, we're going to involve more in the sides and backs of our hips. So that's why we have those bands on there. But still, even with the bands, we might have to hold this top end position, send that mind to muscle connection to your glutes, and think about contracting and feeling that work back there, okay? And there's nothing that can substitute you feeling it, because all of us are different. So you might need to hold it up there. Some of us might not need to do that at all because we're feeling it like crazy. But whatever makes you get that feeling going on. 15 reps too. So you probably don't have to pause and hold every single rep, but maybe those first 3 to 5, first ones that we go through, we want to take a little bit more time with them, and that way we feel the last 10 or 12, whatever it is, a lot. Okay, so that's our second set. And then we have 1 more. Trying to go right into it too. Okay, so once you're finished, unband. And yes, you're going to be feeling it like crazy, but we're going to still try to go into our third set, which we also remember is our last set. All right, so we'll get through final round of these 2. And then moving on to the next part. Okay, so back to our single deadlift to reverse lunge. Okay, so we'll go through this one. And the more you can think about hinging the hips, especially on the deadlift, the more we're going to feel this in that hamstring and in the back of the leg. We don't want to just bring our body down, because then we tend to move through the back. Rather, we want to think about pushing the hips back, and you'll feel the difference So whether you're not really feeling this in the back of the hips, or maybe you're feeling this more in your low back, that might be something you're accidentally doing, is sort of rounding a little bit. So we can think about driving the hips back, just like we practiced in the warm-up. When we sent the hips back behind us, same rules apply right here. And I mean, we do these all the time, so hopefully you're feeling good in them, getting them in the right place, but every day is different. Sometimes we need that little external reminder. All right, let's get it. Last set. Very nice. Deadlift lunges. Awesome. Okay. Very good work. We'll get through this last set. Set number 3. And then we finish up with that last exercise, our double banded hip thrusts. Maybe single band. If you don't have 2 bands, that's okay. All right. So we'll finish up strong. We have about 2, maybe 3 minutes to finish up here in this last set. Okay, so once you're done, first off, we're going to take our sweet time. Okay, because 2 minutes is a lot of time to do these hip thrusts, and you're probably starting, not getting set up for them right now. So we'll really try to get the most out of this last set and be as conscious, aware, intentional with every single rep. Okay, we're not just going through the motions up and down. I want you to be aware of what you're feeling every one of these 15 times. Okay, and keep in mind this is your last set, last chance with these ones. Pushing the knees out. Okay, bringing your ribs and pelvis, doing a bit of that crunch, so we're not flaring our ribs up. We're sort of crunching it in a little. And squeezing your butt. Let's do it 15 times, whether you like it or not. All right, so once you're finished, woo, we can grab some water. Rest, because there really was no time to rest in that superset there. And we are moving on to the final part for our lower body strength. Now, for this last part here, we're going to start off with moving our chair so that it is in a stable position. So the way this is right now, it's not pushed up against anything back here. So I'm actually going to take this chair, move over to this side, like this. So I have it pushed up against the wall, so it's not going to move when we do this next exercise. Now, same rules apply. First off, if you don't have a chair or a bench, or if that chair or bench that you're using, you cannot move into this stable position, which for most of us, it might already be in a stable position, because what we're going to do is a single leg hip thrust, and I'll show this one so you can get set up for it, with our one leg on this elevated surface here, and then we're going to push up to the top, down, touching our lower back, not the back of our butt, and then up all the way, getting that nice squeeze, now in a single leg hip thrust. So we're working with 12 to 15. We have a range. So you can get yourself set up for this. We're going to start our first set, 12 to 15, but you have to keep it even on both sides, okay? So you can do 12, 13, 14, 15, however many reps you feel. That is going to get you that nice feeling, worked feeling in the back of the hips. Okay, do it on the first side here. See how you feel. And then we'll switch and do the same amount, okay, whatever number you got. Even if you feel better over here, I want you to stop at that same number of reps that you did on the first side. Now, for those of us who don't have a chair or bench, you are going to follow along doing the same thing. Keep in mind, you can always use like a stair or a stool in your house if it's close. Maybe not if you have to like run downstairs or inside or something like that. But that elevation is going to give us a bigger range of motion, which is going to help involve more through the butt, the hamstrings, as opposed to if we had just the foot on the floor, okay? So this is our first one. Woo! 12 to 15 on both sides, very nice. And then, of course, we are going to pair this with a little something, a squat variation. So I'm going to be using both my dumbbells. Once again, holding one in each hand, getting myself into a squat stance. Now again, if you have heavier dumbbells, you can always hold one sideways like this, okay? But I'm gonna hold two in front of me like this, sitting down into a squat, coming up halfway, sitting back down, and then standing all the way up. So we wanna make sure that we're pushing our knees out so that they're not touching our dumbbells. And we're gonna go through that half rep, okay? And then we stand all the way up. We're doing 10 of these total. So again, all the way down, 90 degrees, halfway up, back down. And then all the way up. You got it, 10 of them total. Okay, so again, if you're working with something kind of heavy, you can hold one dumbbell like this. If you have no dumbbells at all, you can always hold your band sideways like this, in this low hold position. Okay, so we'll get through our first set, 10 of them total. Very nice. Now, because we're holding the weights in front of us, we're gonna feel some kind of forward pulling motion just from the way those weights are. So we wanna make sure to pull our shoulder blades together, keep our chest up to avoid that rounding forward that might want to happen as we go through this. Okay, especially as we get tired. We're doing it again once we're finished, no rest. Okay, so we're skipping the time between our sets. We're going to try to go right into our second set, and we have 3 more to go. Okay, so back to that first one. Single leg hip thrust with the elevated foot. Way harder than it looks. Okay, we'll go through in 12 to 15. If you do have one side that feels a lot more challenging than the other, I would suggest to start on that side. Okay, so we'll go through, hands can be on the floor, and we'll go through this set. So same rules apply with that crunching feeling, and that actually is a correction that you can feel at the bottom by touching your back, not your butt. If you come down, you're touching your butt, then you're probably flaring up your ribs like this. So we want to tuck those ribs in and push our back down onto the floor and keep that there the entire set. Okay, so 12, 15. Another thing with this one is we're probably going to feel a bit more work happening in the hamstring than if our foot was on the floor. But if you're feeling too much in the hamstring, like if you're feeling all hamstring and no glute, you might be a little bit too far. Because if I'm too far away from this chair, as I push up here, you can see my knees not at 90 degrees. So it's going to involve my hamstring over my glute. So if I just kind of literally scooch myself in a little bit closer, okay, and you'll feel the difference. You'll feel much more happening in the back of the hips. And that is something that, again, you can adjust on yourself, for yourself. Okay. And yes, the up and the down, getting up off the floor is part of the session. All right, so we'll get to our second set of these squats. Okay, so we're in that sort of normal squat stance. Weights are in front of us. We sit down, come up halfway, back down, and then all the way up. So this one is it's a 1.5 rep squat. So we're trying to intentionally go through half rep more of that squat. So we go down, we come up half, back down, and all the way up. Now I really like this one. I mean, you guys know we do these sort of pausing and pulsing squats often because it gives us, again, more time under tension, and it's going to get us more comfortable in this sort of uncomfortable position in our squat in the low part here. So we'll try to take our time, keeping in mind if we do want to make our sets harder, because you have 2 more, if we slow down, if we spend more time at each point of those 1.5 reps, it's going to make it a lot harder. So if I go here and I kind of intentionally stay in those positions longer rather than just hitting them and leaving, you'll feel much more challenged at the end of that 10. If that's something that you want. Okay, so we'll get through set 3. Woohoo! We have 2 more to go. And then it's core time. Time to lay on the floor. Let's get it. Okay, back to the first one. The single leg hip thrust with the foot elevated. Let's do it. There you go. Okay, so making sure we're pushing all the way up to the top. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so same rules apply in terms of what we're feeling. These hip thrusts, you might have to simply take a bit more time, think about them a little bit more. Have that range, which is nice. Stop at 12 or we can go up to 15. You don't have to stay the same every set. Okay, so you're doing this one now. You have one more after this. So if you feel like you want to do those last extra 3 reps, then you can throw them in there on your final set if you would like. Okay, so again, same rules apply on the squats. Maybe you want to make this set a little bit more challenging. Maybe pausing those sticking points or those paused points in our rep at the 90 degrees, at the 45, and then at the 90. Oh yeah, 10 reps total. Let's do it. Okay, and remembering to keep the shoulders pulled together, especially as we all start to get tired. I mean, we're probably already feeling all this stuff, but as we approach our final set, we might need to think about these things a little more. Okay. This is it. The last set. Let's do it. Okay, so if you can get 15, now is your time to shine. Get those 15 in. 12, whatever reps you're doing. This is your final round. Of the hip throws. Okay. So we'll take about 2 minutes to finish up this last set of both of these. So again, we'll take our time with it. The last part that we're going to do is about 9 minutes. So we got time with it. We have about 3 until we should be starting it. And while you, my friends, are finishing up that final part, I am going to set our timer for this last part. Okay. Perfect, 9 minutes. All right, so we'll get these squats in. Okay, the last set of them, going through again, 10 reps, trying to make it feel like 10 is it. Okay, we don't want to be thinking like, yeah, I could do 11, I could do 12. I want you to want and need to put those weights down at 10. Okay, so whether we actually go a bit slower, be more intentional about pushing our knees out, maybe making sure that we sit down to 90 degrees and we're not cheating ourselves by not hitting that point. Okay, whatever you got to do, let's get it for our final set. As we are finishing up, we grab some water and we're going to put all the stuff away because we have a body weight core circuit coming at you hot for the last part. So I'm going to move my chair out of the way because y'all know I'm short on space, and I'm just going to get that out of the way. Also, my bands and my dumbbells, so I don't trip over them. Okay, so all we need is our mat and the best piece of equipment, our body. And we're going to get down on the floor. Okay, so quick sip of water once you're finished. And then you can come on down and join me here. We're going to actually start in our all four position on our hands and our knees. We have 3 exercises that we're going to do that are on this timer. 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest or transition time. It's not really that much time to rest. First one we're going to do is our off knee bird dog. So we want to start in our hands and our knees, making sure our shoulders are on our wrists, our hips are on our knees, and we're going to pop off our knees into this off knee position and try to lift up opposite arm and opposite leg. Hopefully I made that look easy, because it is not easy, especially when you're talking, looking to the side. So I'm gonna press start on this timer in about 10 seconds. So get yourself ready, get yourself set up, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, and let's go. Starting our first set, again, hovering off the floor, trying to lift up opposite arm and leg, looking for quality over quantity. So I don't care how many you get, but I want you to try to stay as stable as you can in your hips and torso, so we're not tilting and shifting in the hips and legs. Okay, so even if you don't get that many, I prefer you to have more control over more reps. We're halfway through. If you're really struggling with these, start with just the legs. Okay, and then eventually we can add in the arms. Trying to breathe. 10 seconds left. Woo, these ones always get my heart rate up. 3, 2, 1, and rest. Okay, flipping over onto our back. We have 2 more to go on our back here. We're gonna lift up our legs, lift up our arms, make a triangle in our hands, reach our arms back behind our head, and then exhale and crunch our shoulders. Come all the way back and touch the floor with our hands, and then exhale and crunch up towards our feet. If you want to make this harder, if you reach beyond your feet, more above your head or behind your head, you'll feel the difference. It makes it a lot more challenging than if we go towards the feet. Okay, keep in mind, again, we don't have to touch the feet. We want to keep the legs straight, but a little bend in the knees is going to make this a lot more comfortable, as most of us aren't that flexible to completely straighten out our legs. 10 seconds left. So we're trying to exhale, shoulder blades leave the floor, getting that work in our upper abs. You'll feel this kind of in the top of your core. And rest. Okay, rest, rest. 1 more to go, which is going to be our reverse crunch. So we're going to take our hands and support our hips. You can kind of walk your hands in, move your hips right and left so your hips feel supported by those hands. Legs lift back up, bend in the knees, and we're going to exhale and lift our hips off the floor. This is going to be us for 45 seconds. I'm not worried about lowering my legs, but I am worried about lifting my hips off the floor. This one's going to tap more into the lower abs. So we might feel a little bit of tension in our lower back. If that's the case, a bit more bend in your knees will help you feel a bit more in your abs and less in that low back, okay? 15 seconds left. Don't worry about how high you're getting your hips, but make sure that they are coming off and not falling back onto the floor. The more control you can have on that lowering, the better. And you're almost there. 3, 2, 1, and rest. And turn back around. Because you guessed it, we're doing it again. Back to our first one. Potentially the hardest one, the off-knee bird dog. I think it is. So hands in the knees, and let's go. Opposite hand, opposite leg, extending out away from the body. Again, trying to keep everything in your body still. We got this pop-up happening here. There we are. Okay, so 25 seconds left. Control. Trying to exhale as those go out. Get that arm all the way up over your head. Woo! There we go. 15 seconds left. Okay, breathing through these ones. Yes, you got this. Give me like 1 more on each side. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Definitely the hardest one. Okay, back over onto our back for our second of 3 sets. So we have this one and 1 more, and then we are done. So we'll lift up those legs, lift up those arms. Okay, again, if you want to feel a little bit more in your abs, then reach those arms above or behind your head slightly like this, rather than towards the toes like this. By doing that, we're keeping more tension on your core and ab muscles in the front here, whereas if we bring it up, we're sort of taking that tension away, which makes it feel a little easier, okay? Which might be a perfect place for you to be, or you might want to reach back a little. Totally depends on you, okay, and how you're feeling.
So we'll just work it, again, making sure that both our shoulder blades leave the floor every single time. 2 more. 3, 2, 1. And rest. You can put the legs down real quick. We only have this 15 seconds, which is really not a lot of time, before we start our second set of those reverse crunches. Again, we'll support the hips. Okay, lift up the legs. Exhale. Try to lift those hips up. Try to control that down phase so that our hips, our tailbones, not just smacking the floor, smacking the mat, but rather we're controlling, seeing if we can let our hips down a little bit slower. And if you feel like you can't quite do that, it's okay. This one is very demanding exercise, and it takes a specific kind of strength to be able to control this, which is why we have it in here, why we throw it in, so that you can get better at it. So remember how this feels. Hopefully next time we do it, you feel a bit more control. Maybe that's how you're feeling right now. As per last time we did it, 5 seconds left. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, here we are, the final set. So we're gonna flip back over into that front one, that off-knee bird dog. We're gonna get this one done. Okay, remembering quality over quantity, so important. So when we go through our set, we want to lift that arm all the way up, extending our leg out, and controlling our body so that we're not losing our balance, our hips aren't lifting up into the air. Okay, there we go. So 30 seconds here. Breathe through this one, okay? Remember to breathe, because holding our breath, although sometimes it just naturally happens, it does not make anything easier. It's just going to make you a little dizzy, lightheaded when you finish your set. So try to exhale. Every time you extend, exhale out. 10 seconds left, especially now as you get to the end. Okay, keeping it tight. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And rest. Okay, you're done that one. So we have these last 2 to go. The toe touches. Although we're not touching our toes, we are going in that direction. And then we have our reverse crunches. Okay, let's do it. Last, final set number 3. Okay, trying to get crunch up, making sure that we're not overly poking our neck forward. We want to tuck our chin in, okay, and go through this final set. Okay, think about those upper abs. 20 seconds left. There we are. Breathing, same idea. We want to exhale when we're crunching up, shoulders leaving the floor. You got this. 2 more. Good ones. All the way up. 3, 2, and rest. But don't go anywhere because we have the last one, the reverse crunches. Okay, again, for some of us, this one would be the hardest one because the way we are, the way our bodies are. So we'll just work it as we can. Okay, for 45 seconds, and keeping in mind a little bit more bend in the knee will most likely make this one feel more manageable and put a bit less work on that lower back. Again, we're feeling that lower back mostly because this is a very demanding ab core exercise. And anytime we put a lot of demand on one group or one group of muscles, the opposing muscles want to kick in and help it out. So that's why we're doing a lot of core work. We do a lot of these crunches and ab work. Some of us might feel that tension or tense feeling in our lower back. Completely normal. That's the pain. You can work through that pain, but sometimes it's a little easier said than done. And okay, we are done. Hopefully I distracted you a little bit there. Hope you feel good. We're going to get a quick little stretch in that starts back in our all-4 position, but don't worry, we're not lifting off of our knees. We're going to start with the cat-cow. So driving our ribs down to the floor, looking up to the ceiling, taking a big inhale here, and then exhaling and rounding our back, tucking our chin, lifting up our back up into this rounded position. And then we'll go through that 3 times total. So ribs down, looking up, go through that full breath cycle. Inhale, exhale, and then another inhale, going through that round with an exhale, Not worrying too much about your breath, but we are trying to take them as we transition. Okay, so 3 total of these ones. Oh, and it feels so nice after doing all that stuff. Yes. As we finish up that 3rd round, we're going to drive the hips back and sit on the heels, walking our fingertips away from the body, getting ourselves this nice lengthening stretch on our back. We'll feel this all the way from our actual lat and back muscles into our lower back. And we'll hold this here for about 30 seconds, hanging out in this child's pose. Okay, trying to breathe, take those nice deep breaths and lengthen from our hands down to our lower back, our spine. You feel it getting longer as we sit here. So we'll take about 2 more nice deep inhale and exhales. Okay, on your next breath, you can come out of this one, and we'll bring ourselves walking one knee forward and tucking in our heel, our foot, so it's sitting underneath that opposite hip. Now, if you're someone with pre-existing knee injuries and where you have sensitive knees, this one might not feel so good, and it might not be the best one for you. For most of us, it's completely fine. We're getting a nice stretch on this hip, maybe even a little bit on the front of this opposite hip here. But again, it's putting us into quite a great knee bend, and you might be more comfortable and feel more safe doing this one instead, okay? So you don't have to do both unless you want to. We'll pick one of these, and we're gonna hold it for 60 seconds. And we're gonna hold this together so that we can get at least one solid set of these stretches in. Keep in mind, as I always tell you guys, that if you complete more than one set, maybe 2 to 3 sets of this, you will feel more loose and feel more benefit from these stretches, okay? But at least one set, we're going to get it in together. And then if you want to make some time after we're done here, then you can add another set of these stretches in. So we'll take some deep breaths, about 2 more, nice, slow, controlled, feeling that exhale sink you deeper into that stretch. Okay, and then we'll switch sides. So whatever one you're doing, whether it's this one on your back or whether it is this one I think it's a pigeon, is our technical yoga term. Whatever you got going on here, we'll switch and do the other side where we're going to hold this one for 1 minute. Yes. And again, it's going to help us get that loosening stretch for the glute, the back of the hips, because y'all know we did a lot of work back there today. As much as we like to feel all these things the next couple of days, these stretches are important to help us stay limber and loose and be able to get through our regular daily activities. So we'll stay here about 20 more seconds and breathing, holding these stretches. Okay, so the last one that I would like you to do is going to hip flexors. Okay, so you did all that core work as well as that leg work, as well as just general real life tends to put a lot of tension on the hips in the front here. And having the tight hip flexors, as we know, causes a lot of issues like feeling tight. As that lower back pain that tends to creep up from these tight hips. So we're going to spend 60 seconds. Last stretch that we're going to do together, 1 minute over here, 1 minute on the other side, and then you shall be free to go. Okay, and keep in mind we can always do this one standing like this. If we don't want to kneel, that's okay. But we're going to hang out here, trying to breathe into this, getting that pelvic tilt going, opening up that hip in the front. And again, this should not be painful. We should just feel tight tension. And then we're going to hold that tension and exhale into that stretch. So again, we'll take about 2 more deep breaths, about 10 more seconds left, and then we shall switch sides. Okay, so as we approach the end of this minute, if you join me when I switch, then we'll switch a roux and do the other side, and we will hang up here. So keep in mind, as we finish up this last stretch, like I said, you can do more than one set of those ones that we just did for the glutes, for the front of the hips. You can also incorporate some other stretches if you'd like to. A couple of them that I'm going to show you right now as you hold this side here, your bow and arrow. Okay, so if we do this one and you feel really tight in it, you might benefit from adding it in right now, this one here. This is a good one to do. And then the last one is this hamstring stretch where we sit up and we walk our hands forward. Two great stretches. We're not going to do them together, but if you would like, now is the perfect time to do them because we're nice and warm and limber and ready to go. Okay, so you guys are done with me. You can come out of that stretch. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in the Zoom room. Hopefully you all feel good, and we will see you tomorrow for upper body. Okay, bye. And my replay watchers, if you're still here, as we are about 5 minutes over time for our class, you can drop a comment below, hit the like button so I know you were here and I know you did this session, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.